Hello everyone and welcome to yet another recreational programming session with Mr. Zozin. So recently John Carmack actually tweeted a very interesting post about act on press. So for those who doesn't know what is act on press and or act on release or anything like that, you probably, I don't know how many people actually notice that, but if you click on any button on like any interface, right? So GUI application or web application, doesn't freaking matter. Like you click on it and it doesn't activate the click unless you release it. So this is what we call act on release. And the reason why we usually do that is because it makes the click cancelable. Right, so essentially I just click on it and then I realized, oh no, I don't want to actually click it, but what do I do now? What do I fucking do? Well, you can basically like move out your cursor out of the boundaries of the button, unpress it, and it doesn't register the click. So that was original idea behind this sort of UI decision, and it kind of sticks, kind of stuck with like all of the UIs over decades, right? So this is what we got used to. So John Carmack recently tweeted, write a whole post where he argued that you need to do act on press. Don't do the whole thing where you wait until the user releases. Just like if the user pressed, just immediately activate it. Right. So, and personally, I don't really have like a very much strong opinion on like how to organize things. Right. So the only reason why I do act on release is because it kind of makes sense. The explanation of why people implement it like that kind of makes sense. And everyone is doing that. So that means I assume that that's the expectations of the user. Right. So, and I do that as well. And I did that as well in my GUI application that I developed for quite some time already. So, which is called Visualizer. So let's actually take a look at it. Right, so I'm gonna just run it super quick. So this is how it looks like. You're supposed to actually drag and drop some music in here. There we go. So, and I have a bunch of buttons in here, right? So one of them, for instance, is full screen, right? So, and essentially if I click on it, it doesn't activate full screen. Only when I actually unpress it, it activates the full screen. And the same with play and so also mute and everything. And especially, I think it's kind of important for the render button, because render is actually a very heavy operation. You don't want to accidentally click in it, right? So you want to be able to cancel sort of this this action. Rendering like starts up FFmpeg and starts rendering the animation and piping the frames into FFmpeg, creating an actual video and stuff like that, right? So this is what Visualizer was created for. Right, so, and yeah, so recently John Carmack actually argued that you should do act on press, and it would be kind of interesting to like listen through his argument. So this is a UI design hill I will die on, and it dismays me how often and hard I have had to fight for it. Almost all interaction methods have a press and release event associated with them. Whenever possible, you should do the thing when you get the press event instead of waiting for the release event. Okay, so this is completely like opposite to what I was just explaining, right? So because it makes an interaction feel substantially more responsive, and it reduces the user error by not allowing the focus to slide out of the hot box between press and release. So it reduces user error by not allowing. Oh, I see. So if you have a very small button, you can actually like accidentally slide and not. I see. This is actually a very good point. Right. Huh. I never fucking thought about that. What the fuck? But how often does it happen to me? Right, because like it doesn't activate, like it just like slips through. But if it was activating immediately, like I wouldn't have that problem. Okay. So more responsive reduces error. Even a ballistic tap, where your finger is intentionally bouncing off of the button or touch surface, involves several tens of milliseconds delay between the press and release. And most button presses have well over 100 milliseconds dwell time. I have no idea what all of that means, but whatever. There is a delight in interfaces that feel like they respond instantly to your wishes. And the benefit to every single user is often more important than additional niche features. Game developers with simple UI toolkits tend to get this right more often, but sophisticated app designers will often fight hard against it because it's mostly incompatible with options like interactive touch, scrolling views, long press menus, and drag and drop. Okay, so in case of a drag and drop, it's just like you activate thing on release, basically, right? But I mean, It's just like they don't like it because it's inconsistent with all that, or that's kind of a weird reason to actually not do that. But anyway, being able to drag scroll a web page or, oh, I see, drag scroll the web page. I see. Being able to drag scroll a web page or view with interactive control in it is here to stay and nets out way better than having to use a separate scroll bar. But there are still tons of fixed position controls that should act on press, and it is good UI design to favor them when possible. Okay, I see that, right? So maybe for web, it is not really an option anymore, right? So drag scrolling and everything, right? So because essentially, like I'm trying to do that, and when I'm going up, especially on mobile, it's supposed to activate scrolling, right? So, and if you actually act on press, you can't really easily do that, right? That kind of makes sense, right? So that kind of makes sense. Okay. All right. So in the early days of mobile VR, the system keyboard was dedicated. Was a dedicated little OpenGL app that responded instantly. With full internationalization, it became prudent to turn it into a convenient Android app. I don't know how to read this word, but whatever. But the default act and release button behavior made it feel noticeably crappier. The design team resisted a push to change it and insisted on commissioning a user study, which is a corporate politics ploy to bury something. I was irritated at how they tried to use leading questions and tasks, but it still came back one of the clearest slam dunks I have seen for user testing. Objectively less typos, expressed preference, and interview comments about the act on press version feels crispier and more responsive. And this is something that actually caught my attention in this entire post. They actually conducted a study. This is not just somebody's opinion, right? So John Carmack's opinion, but still opinion nonetheless. They conducted a study which demonstrated that act on press actually has a higher preference and it feels more responsive. So that's what like really caught my attention. Oh, so there's something objective to that. Holy shit. Right, it would be kind of cool if the results of this study were published somewhere, like with the actual data, with actual details and stuff like that, so we can actually see that. But I doubt that they're gonna do that, right? So because it's VR, so he worked in Oculus, right? So if I'm not mistaken, so it's a Facebook and stuff like that. They're probably not going to release that, but that would be interesting for everyone. So I want that one, but the remaining times I brought it up for other interfaces, I did not. And you still see act and release throughout the Meta VR system interfaces. This is a very interesting post, right? So, and again, I really don't have a strong opinion on this entire thing, so you can find it in here, right? I really don't have a strong opinion. I just do that because everyone does that. So I'm open to alternative ideas, and I think it's kind of a good argument, right? So, and I thought, can we just like go ahead and try to implement that in Visualizer and see if it just feels better, right? So, oh yeah, so the follow-up, yeah, so the easy undo. So I think, yeah, essentially, I didn't hear. Yeah, relative UI principle is making everything easy to undo, whether it's navigating back to where you just were or undeleting a file. Don't use it as an excuse for act and release or model confirmation dialog. Just do it, but allow it to be undone. For example, it should be easier to cancel an app launch in VR than you misclick. It's irritating that the meta button doesn't work during the launch process. Yeah, it's understandable. So, and we have this kind of situation in Visualizer as well, and it's a rendering, right? So it's a rendering thing. So let me actually try to do that. So essentially, if I take just a second. So I need some sort of a maybe small music in here, right? So, and if I press render, it starts rendering. I can still cancel it by pressing escape, but it doesn't feel super fast. Right, so it doesn't feel super fast because it takes some time to stop FFmpeg. Right, so, and because of that, it kind of penalizes you for misclicking render. So one of the ways to sort of solve that, I think, would be making canceling FFmpeg faster. Right, so the thing about the FFmpeg is that it blocks the UI thread. So first thing we'll have to do, we'll have to move FFmpeg rendering to a separate thread, right, to sort of free up the UI thread. And when you cancel this entire thing, we should keep canceling it in a separate thread. So the UI should instantly go and become available to the user, and at the same time FFmpeg is canceling somewhere in the background, so the canceling of the rendering doesn't feel that much penalizing, right? So it's kind of interesting to accommodate this kind of UI change. We have to make a structural architectural change, and maybe it's worth it, as John Carmack said. Maybe it starts to feel so fucking crispy and responsive that, structural architectural change actually worth it. Throw away the thread. So yeah, and I mean, I wanted to actually do FFmpeg in a separate thread anyway, right? So because again, it was blocking UI thread, and this is generally not something that you want to do. So I don't think it's worth it for your app. I don't know, it's an experimental app. We're having fun in here, right? So we're having fun. This is called recreational programming. So if we can easily do that, right, so why not just do that? And I want you to do that anyway. So let's just have fun. Let's just have fun. So yeah, and that's basically the topic for today's stream. Seriously, that's basically the topic for this stream. Let's actually add support for act on press instead of act on release. And maybe this is going to be like a feature flag, right? So we don't have to really dismantle everything that we have in here right now. So we just put it behind the feature flag, and who wants can enable it and test it for themselves and tell us, right, whether they feel it better or not. So that's kind of interesting. Freaking exactly. There's always that one guy. It's not worth it. Yeah, the stream is over. Okay, bye-bye. See ya. Fucking see ya. Anyways, all right, let's go ahead and do that. So the cool thing about the build system and visualizer is that we can just add a new feature flag, right? So we already have feature flags for bundling, unbundling, the microphone feature, and so on and so forth. So we might as well just add something like visualizer, act on press, right? So act on press. And let me actually see. So this is going to be knob.c. And how are we going to be doing all of that? So as far as I know, somewhere in a plug, yeah, so let's actually just grab config.h. So we are effectively just including that config.h into the main application, right? So the cool thing about this config.h is that it's included in the build system and in the main application. So that means if we enable some feature flag, both the build system and the main application know about that, right? So both of them know about that. So I can just add this entire thing, and that's it. It's already kind of available there. All right, so I can do plug.c. And where do we do all of that? As far as I know, there's just like a button. Yeah, there we go. So here it is. So there's a button with location, button with ID. So there's a low level. There we go. Here it is. Here it is. So this is immediate UI function that, given an ID of the UI element that we're talking about and a particular boundary, it looks at the input of the user at that specific frame and just decides whether the thing was clicked or not. Right. And to be fair, act on press automatically makes this entire thing easier. Right. So yeah, because now we can simplify the entirety of the logic, honestly. We can simplify the entirety of the logic. So let me actually maybe cross this entire thing. So we check collision point rect. Okay, so this is hovered, right, and this is clicked. And the click is activated when, so we're keeping track of active button ID and not active button ID. So I suppose now it is basically as simple as this. So hover over and pressed, essentially. Hover over and pressed, and we can kind of get rid of this entire thing. So yeah, that's about it. So I think that will automatically make it act on press throughout the entire thing. Right. So it will still require removing some of the things. So we have a notion of active button ID, and active button ID is the button that is currently held. Right. And it's currently held specifically to accommodate act on release. Right. And since we don't have act on release, for that specific feature flag, I think it should be even removed from the state of the application. Right. So yeah, where is it? Active button. Yeah, there we go. So it's only needed when you're like holding a button, but we don't hold it anymore. But you want both. Yeah, so that means because of that, it's going to be conditional compilation, right? So like I included a feature flag for a reason. Come on, people, come on. All right. So let me actually do it like that, and let me find this entire stuff. So where is the music? So is that the music? Here is the music. All right. So let me put this thing in here. Okay. Okay. So maybe there's something with my mouse. So there's definitely something with my mouse. Okay. So that seems to be working. And yeah, my mouse is really fucking dying. But it feels a little bit more responsive. It feels a little bit more responsive. So we're canceling FFmpeg right now. So yeah, it really works. It really works badly with our current rendering because again, it's just canceling, right? So it takes too much time to freaking cancel all that stuff. Right. So and it's like very punishing, right? If you didn't meant to do that. It's really fucking punishing. Right, I think another place where we did all of that, is here. Okay. That feels a little bit more responsive, I can agree with that. So I suppose I'm gonna release that with the feature flag. And then you guys will decide for yourself whether you feel that it's more responsive or not, right? So I'm not gonna, I'm gonna keep both of the things in here, right? So, and we'll see how we can go about that. Right, so where is the config.h? So if act on press, if it's defined, we including, actually, if it's not defined, we are gonna be including that, like so, and if visualizer act on press. So since I removed it now, it doesn't really exist anymore. Right, it doesn't really exist anymore, and I suppose, yeah, it's still compilable. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Let me also do this kind of thing, right? If not defined, visualizer act on press, and we just do that. So visualizer act on press. So that was actually pretty easy. Apparently for me to just implement act on press is just like, yeah, a couple of changes. Just remove, yeah, literally remove 2 pieces of code. What the fuck? Like I didn't even have to add any code, just remove. So speaking of John Carmack, yesterday I watched Indie Game, the movie, and I think it was very inspirational. I still haven't watched it, honestly. I still haven't watched it. Even if you don't develop games yourself, there is something to admire about the passion and dedication those indies have. Exactly, right. So the people at the time, right, the developers at the time were really passionate about what they're doing because they were not going there for the money the way a lot of people go today in programming and game development and stuff like that. They're there for the money. Right, so, and you could literally feel the passion of people at the time. So, and this is the kind of passion I'm trying to preserve, right? So because people went into programming in my days also because they were passionate about it, right? I'm still passionate about it, right? So, and I don't want to lose that passion. So the problem is that the current corporate environment, it kind of sucks all of the passion out of you, right? Because there's a lot of unpassionate people that go into that industry and they absolutely fucking hate those passionate, annoying people who care about doing great job. They absolutely fucking despise them because they look bad in front of them. So what they have to do, they have to suck out all of the joy, all of the passion out of them to bring them on their own level. So, and that's what they're doing. That's what they constantly fucking doing, right? So yeah, it is what it is, and it isn't what it isn't. So they do that because they hate us, and they hate us because they ain't us. All right, so here we don't even use ID. That's very interesting, actually. That's very interesting. So I suppose what we can do something else, right? So, and if you're like in act on press, we just like ignore ID, and ID kind of becomes meaningless because we never have to actually like keep track of it anymore, right? So we never have to keep track of it. So which is okay, understandable. It is what it is, and it isn't what it isn't. Okay, so I'm gonna run the musicalizer. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to put some music. Right, I'm gonna confirm that this is act on press. Right, so it is in fact act on press. It does feel like act on press. Cool. So, and now I'm gonna go to the config.h. I'm gonna disable act on press, and it's gonna rebuild the whole thing. Right. And now it is act on release. All right, so I'm gonna just run this entire stuff, and let me see. So is it act on release? No. Wait, it's actually both now. Wait a second, am I? Yes, I am an idiot. I am apparently an idiot. I forgot about this part. Right. So this kind of stuff has to be, yeah, it has to be included, like so. Right, what's there? I'm really glad that I decided to check all of that. So originally it was 0, right? So essentially, if it's not act on press, it has to be initially 0, like so, and then the actual value of whether it's clicked or not is decided through this convoluted logic, right? So yeah, it's again, so the cool thing about this idea is that on top of making the UI responsive, it's just like easier to implement, right? If I can make my UI feel better by literally removing code, I'll fucking take it anytime. Like, I mean, so act on both new UI part. This is so fucking funny. It is literally act on both. Like, how about that? Act on both. Like, act on release, act on press, act on both. Right, so always act. Like, press all of the buttons automatically. So the worst of both worlds, exactly. The worst of both worlds. 11. Okay, so let's actually try to run it. And where is my mouse? Okay. I'm sorry. I just accidentally opened it up. Just a second. Yeah. All right. So that is act on release, and it's toggleable now. So the thing about these feature flags is that we need to include this feature flag in also config generation, right? So you have this feature flag, it works fine, that is very cool. But if you accidentally delete the build folder, right, and you try to rebuild the whole thing again, it will regenerate the config flag for you automatically, but it's gonna not include, it's not gonna include that new feature flag. Right, so now we also probably want to include it into the config generation, right? So, and by the way, when it builds for the first time, it also builds Raylib from scratch, right? So when we build Raylib from scratch, because I think we just need to build it with different parameters depending on like different flags that you have in here. So that's why we're building it from scratch. Though, kind of, we don't really have to. But it makes it easily buildable for like, you know, exotic platforms like OpenBSD. There is no I think there's no builds for OpenBSD. I think Ray-San doesn't build for OpenBSD, but it's buildable on OpenBSD. And since we're building Raylib from scratch, it actually makes it easy to port Visualizer for OpenBSD. Let me actually double check if it actually does that. Right. So for a lot of my newer projects in Raylib, I just include the binaries for the platforms, but that makes them like a little bit harder to port. Yeah, there's no OpenBSD. Well, there's no even FreeBSD, honestly. There's only 3 major platforms like Linux, Mac OS, and Windows, and also WebAssembly, right? So if you want a cross-platform application, just like use WebAssembly version in the browser. Just use the browser. Everyone has a browser, right? Just use a browser. Modern software development be like, am I right? Am I right? Am I right? So yeah, let me see. So where do we generate the configs? So this is where we generate them apparently. Yeah, there we go. So let's just add some stuff. Let's just add some stuff. Visualizer act on press, right? So, and in here, what we want to say, activate UI buttons on press instead of release, just as John Carmack explained. Right, I'm gonna take the description and we're gonna take his tweet and we're gonna put that tweet in here. The reason we're putting that tweet in here is because that actually puts all of the responsibility on him for any fuck-ups. If this is actually a bad idea, right, so the comment said, it's John Carmack, like, don't blame me, it's him, right? So he said that on Twitter. Right, so we're gonna blame John Carmack for all that. Yeah. So that's gonna be a good idea. I think that's gonna be a good idea. All right. So now, is it rebuilding everything? Yeah. So what I want you to test, right? So we need to test. I want you to just test how it, rebuilds itself. How it freaking rebuilds itself. Sandy X, thank you so much for subscription with the message Twitter client in C. Yeah, that would be interesting actually. That would be interesting. So it would be actually work faster. But I feel like maybe that's kind of against the point of Twitter, honestly. That's kind of against the point of Twitter because Twitter UI is kind of weird. And I feel like it is weird on purpose. It is weird on purpose, so it can easily hide that it's actually manipulating the notifications and the feed, blaming it on its glitchiness. Right, have you noticed that Twitter sometimes, like, it's kind of slightly glitching all over the place, and I'm starting to feel like that it's almost intentional to sort of hide the fact that it's actually manipulating what it's showing you, right? So it's kind of bizarre. Activate UI items on press seems to be a UX unfriendly idea. It's kind of weird how all of these people who say that completely ignored the part where John Carmack said that they literally conducted a research, and the results of the research said that it feels better and people prefer it. Like, why all of you who criticize that tweet literally ignore that huge part where he said, we conducted research, it came to be that it feels for majority of people crispier and they prefer it. Like, why are you all ignoring that part? I think this is the most interesting part. So that just means that it's not just his opinion, right? So there's something to that. So that research was only a virtual keyboard in VR though. That's a good point. Finally somebody is actually saying a good point, a good criticism. Exactly. Right. So this is the kind of shit I want to hear. Not just, no. They conducted research, right? So whether it's applicable for this kind of stuff, that's an interesting question, actually. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. And that's why I'm not actually baking this entire thing. I'm making it a feature flag. So then I can actually, publish it and maybe collect the feedback. Don't worry, I'm just farting. Oh, yeah, that's actually a good idea. It's really good for your health, right? It puts the pressure between your body and the surrounding environment in equilibrium, right? So it's very important, I think. It's very important. So, alrighty, that seems to be good. So if we open config.h, and does it have the new thing? Yeah, activating UI press buttons on press instead of release, just as John Carmack explained in this specific tweet. Okay, so that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right, so let me see what we can do. So I'm going to just commit this entire thing and implement act on press feature flag, right? Feature flag, and I'm going to push that right into the repo. Right, feel free to actually like download this entire thing and test it. Right, feel free to download it and test it and see if it feels better. But right now, I feel like it's kind of like against it goes really against the whole application again, because rendering is such a punishing action that you quite often want to avoid it. To be fair, I don't even like that I put the rendering button nearby the play button. I think that's a very bad idea, honestly. I think this is a very bad idea. Like, look at that. Right, so here you have like a, play and pause, and then nearby you have a render that really heavily punishes you for just misclicking it. Right, so this is like already kind of bad, but I mean, I couldn't find a good place for it from the visual point of view. Maybe I should have actually put it in here. I had this interesting idea where for like at the bottom, I would have all of the controls for just controlling the visual part of the preview. And at the top, I would have all of the dangerous things. Maybe in the future, I'm going to have more of them. All of the sort of dangerous things that you want to avoid. But again, you don't want to actually put it on the left and here, because here you have a list of the things, right? A list of the songs. So it probably has to be somewhere on the right. And maybe that's going to be in the future the place where I'm going to place it. On the right, I was planning to have a panel with the parameters of the rendering, like resolution, the quality, the bit rate, the FPS, and so on and so forth. And maybe down there should be some sort of like a button render. Right, so this is what I want you to do. So maybe eventually this render will go there, and it's not going to be even immediately visible. It's going to be behind all of these options. You will have to scroll down or something like that. Make render button red so it's easy to avoid. Exactly, right. So this is one of the things I have to do. Like putting it here, huge mistake. Fucking huge mistake. Like, and I admit that, right? So it's a huge UX mistake, and eventually I will get rid of that. That's for sure. That's for sure. But for now, I just like don't really know where to place it unless I have this right button, but I need to develop this this button. Right. But I feel like rendering has to be cancelable nonetheless. It has to be cancelable. And to make it cancelable, I think we need to have more control. Like the FFmpeg process has to be independent from the UI thread. So we need to somehow detach them. And the question is, how are we going to be detaching them? That's a good question. So running them in a separate thread. So it has to be sort of like a pollable. Right. So you create a FFmpeg handle. It creates a separate thread. Right, and that separate thread creates a separate process of FFmpeg. Then in a UI thread, you created one single frame, and you send that one single frame to FFmpeg, right? In FFmpeg thread, and it sends it to encode it and stuff like that. Then on the next iteration of a game loop, of UI game loop, you are getting the next frame and you're trying to send it to FFmpeg again. And what if the previous frame has not finished encoding in FFmpeg? What if it has not finished encoding? What do we do in that specific case? We can't block, right, because that blocks the UI. So we have to either queue the frames. We should probably start queuing the frames, or we should probably start, not render them. So basically, UI thread may actually poll FFmpeg thread asking, are you ready to accept the frame? Okay, if you're not ready to accept the frame, I'm going to just handle the user input. I'm going to just play something to the user in the next iteration. Are you ready to accept the frame? Okay, rendering the next frame, sending it to FFmpeg. There you go. In the next iteration, are you ready to accept the frame? Not ready. Okay, I'm going to talk to the user or something like that. This is basically the idea I have. I'm not sure how good of an idea that is, but I don't know. So yeah, or maybe there should be a way to, when you cancel this thing, to sort of detach. But wait a second, maybe we can already detach this entire. So like, how do I finish the whole thing? Like, at least on Linux, right? At least on Linux, FFmpeg and rendering. All right, so yeah, so the main problem in here, in fact, is this loop. And specifically, this function call. So that's what kind of makes it difficult to cancel. Honestly, that's what makes it difficult to cancel. So yeah, and we're not even explicitly trying to kill it. So the only thing we do is closing the pipe, I suppose, or the pipe is already closed by itself. Yeah, we don't even. So I think that one wife exited. Yeah, one of the things we have to probably do, we have to send some sort of a signal to FFmpeg. Send some sort of signal to FFmpeg, telling it, bruh, I'm done with you. I'm fucking done with you, and just detach it. Don't even wait for it to finish properly or anything like that, or just send it signal like sig interrupt or whatever, right? And just like, you know, go back into UI, and FFmpeg is just like gonna finish itself eventually. But I mean, you still need to collect its exit status, right? Otherwise it turns into zombie, right? Are zombies on Linux still a thing? Do you guys remember, like, there was like a zombie processes? It's when, you know, the parent process creates a child process, but then never actually collects its exit status. So it still kind of exists in a vacuum, right? So, but like, it doesn't do anything, right? So it's dead basically. It's only waiting for the parent to collect its exit code via the wait PID or whatever. I think that's how it works. I haven't like encountered them. Just use kill. Yeah, so probably this is what I have to do. I'll just have to use kill. But I will have to conduct some experiments in here, right? So kill. So it accepts the PID and just sends the signal. Okay, so that's understandable. So standards, it's part of the POSIX, right? So it's a standard thing. The only signals that can be sent to process ID 1 is the init RDOS for those init has installed signal handlers, blah blah, nothing particularly special. All right, so that sounds good. That sounds Gucci. That sounds Tamaguchi. But to be fair, I want to actually send this signal, the kill signal, only when I'm really fucking canceling it. Right, I'm really canceling this entire thing, and I suppose when I'm just waiting for the finish, because I call this thing in two cases. When I'm done sending the frames, and I'm just waiting for FFmpeg to finish. Or when I press escape and I really want to finish the whole thing. You can kill -1, really? So what does kill -1 do? So if PID equals to -1, the signal is sent to every process for which the calling process has permission to send signals except for the... What the fuck? Wait! So it just like sends kill process to everyone? It's just like a broadcasting? Can I send it? Does it send it only to child processes, or does it send it to like sibling processes as well? Does it have permissions for that? Is it like kill the entire system, like kill everyone? Maybe that's what kill all. It's kind of bizarre, honestly. What the fuck? Genocide. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. All right, so I think I want to explore that particular part of you know, visualizer, how to, you know, kill FFmpeg quicker, because now it becomes kind of part of the UX, right? So it always was kind of a part of the UX, but now it is even more important, especially if you enable act on press. So yeah, I think like we really need to focus on killing FFmpeg faster, as quick as possible. Right. So, but I ran out of tea, unfortunately. So I suppose we need to make a small break, super quick. Okay, good. Let's continue. So what do we have? So let's try to maybe like literally send like a sig int to FFmpeg and see if it makes the canceling process a little bit faster. So if you take a look at where we call to all of these functions, specifically to FFmpeg and the rendering, Right, so because we, again, as I already said, we call it in two separate instances. When we're done sending the frames and we're just waiting for FFmpeg to finish its thing, right, so because it kind of buffers the frames itself and then just encodes them. And we call it when we want to cancel, so we don't really distinguish these two cases. And that's probably the problem, actually. So to be fair, to cancel, we just close the standard input, and that kind of sends the signal to FFmpeg. We're not sending anything anymore, right? But it's still kind of processing the backlog of the frames that it has in there. Right. So let me see, like, where do we call this function? So two cases. So this is the first case, right? And this is the second case, right? So we don't check the result. So here, yeah, this is the usual situation. When we send the frame and something went wrong, we couldn't send the frame, we call end rendering. So I suppose in that case, if we couldn't send the frame, maybe FFmpeg is aware that something went wrong, it's already finishing, we don't really have to do anything in here. So I suppose I'm gonna just leave this thing as it is. So where is other things? So this FFmpeg end rendering is when we're done, right? So as you can see, we have a wave cursor. Wave is the sound wave of the sound that we're rendering. It went over the amount of frames that we have in here, right? And so this is where we're trying to finish this entire thing. Oh, this is very cool. FFT settled. Did you guys know what it is? So FFT is actually, like, all of these things, they're animated, right? So essentially when you finish the sound, it doesn't disappear right away. It basically settles a little bit until 0, right? When the bars go down. So we kind of let it settle until 0 and we continue rendering that settling process. Even though we ran out of sound, the animation is still playing. I completely forgot about that. This is actually kind of cool. I even have like a function called for that. This is a very good choice of a name for the function, because I looked at this name and I instantly remembered what it was. Right, and it's actually pretty easy. So we have some sort of epsilon, and we'll look at the values of each individual bar, and we see if it's actually, like, if all of them less that epsilon, so that means it's already settled, right? So it actually settles. It slows down when it settles, right? So it's never really like reaching 0, and it's also floating points. So floating points like are very, very fuzzy, right? So you can't really compare them strictly anyway. So you need some sort of epsilon, right? And another thing in here is when we pressed escape. This one is interesting. So we literally do not distinguish these two kind of situations, and we even indicate that by putting the or between these cases, right? So the left one is when we fully finished rendering everything, and the right one is when we want to cancel that, and we literally do not distinguish all of that shit. Maybe we should. Maybe we should. So, and what I'm thinking is that how we're going to be even approaching all of that? How we're going to be approaching all that? We need to maybe have a special function that cancels FFmpeg, or maybe we could have a parameter in FFmpeg end rendering that says that we need to cancel, right? So let's actually give it a try. I'm gonna go to ffmpeg.h, and in here we can just do boolean cancel, right? So, and if it's true, this entire thing on top of just, like, you know, clean every snap, closing every snap, it's also gonna send a signal, sig int, right? A sig int. So, excuse me, let's actually go to the compilation errors, because I'm pretty sure it's going to create some compilation errors after we modified the signature. Yeah, that makes sense. So as of right now, let's actually put false in all of the instances of FFmpeg end rendering, like so, right? And is it going to work? I think it's going to complain that, oh, for fuck's sake. Classic C, I modified the header. But like I didn't modify the C part, and it was totally fine with that. I wonder if I can. I probably can't easily include any of that stuff. Yeah, I can't easily include. Wait a second. I think I can if I just go ahead and include ffmpeg.h. Right? Usually modern compilers can tell you that there is a discrepancy. I mean, even old compilers can tell you that there is a discrepancy between forward declaration, because the declaration between declaration of the function and actual implementation. And they do that because they don't support overloading of the functions. So they will see that there was a function declared with this name and this signature, and then implemented another function with this name but different signature. That is not valid C. It's a valid C++, but not valid C. Right, so, and I think it should now tell us, but I think there will be conflicts between this declaration and this declaration a little bit. I think there will be a little bit of a problem between these two things, but we'll see, So let's actually try to rebuild this entire stuff and look at the problems. Okay, so we can see some stuff. Yeah, I think we don't have to even make it void. I think we can literally make it struct. We can, yeah, we can just make it struct like this. And I think even Raylib does something like that with audio buffers and everything, right? So let me actually take a look at how Raylib even approaches that, raylib.h. So there's a thing called raudio, yeah, and those things are opaque. So that means the user of the interface don't know the structure of this entire structure. I mean, the layout, its size, or anything like that. So, and it's fine to forward declare this entire stuff like that. Right, so that means I can literally do the same thing. I can just do it like that, right? So the user of this translation unit doesn't know the size of the structure or anything like that. It doesn't even need to, because we're passing around pointers anyway, right? So if you have a pointer to the structure, you don't need to know the size of the structure unless you want to access its fields, but we don't access its fields, right? So it's just a pointer. And in here, right? So in here, we just say that that specific structure is called, like, has this layout, and everything should work out, right? So I think that's a good approach. And now it should complain that there is a discrepancy, conflicting types for FFmpeg and rendering, right? So this is exactly what I want you to see. This is exactly what I want you to see. I want you to see it complaining about a discrepancy between declaration and definition. Okay, that's a very good code. That's a very good code. And in here, we're going to do Boolean cancel. Right, and for now, we don't really use Boolean cancel. So let's go. All right, so, and that should compile. That's pretty cool. So now, what do? When you try to end the rendering, so we take the pipe, right? We're saving the pipe and we're saving PID, right? So we're just like taking these fields out of FFmpeg right before freeing it, right before freeing it. Then we're closing the pipe. And this is what we hope is enough to cancel the rendering. But it's not really enough, right? If you have a little bit of the frames left in the FFmpeg buffer, it continue encoding them, so it will take some time to actually cancel this entire thing. What I'm thinking is that what we have to do, if you cancel this thing, let's kill that PID with sigint. That's probably what we need to do in here. Right, so it also needs to be implemented for Windows. I don't really know how to cancel processes on Windows, and I suppose nobody knows, because I heard Windows developers complaining that it's very difficult to just cancel a particular child process. Like, I heard that on Windows, just canceling some sort of a long-running operation, it's literally unsolved computer science problem. You just can't do that. Just invoke task kill, maybe. Like, I don't really know. Like, I'm not a Windows developer. I don't really know how you do this kind of stuff. But I heard Windows developers complaining about all this stuff. So sig abort, I don't really know like which one is better for FFmpeg. So does FFmpeg even document what kind of signals it handles? Let's actually Google it up. FFmpeg, supported POSIX signals. Maybe I should actually look into the man. Signals. It doesn't even document anything. So FFmpeg documentation. Okay. Freaking Google. Supported POSIX signals. Just FFmpeg documentation. Just like whatever, dude. RTFM. Search for it yourself, right? The modern, the age of AI, everyone. The age of AI. So when you seek int ffmpeg, it will try to clean up and finish what it does. Yeah, so but it actually will try to do that a little bit faster. Right, so yeah, it's probably gonna drop whatever it has in the buffer anyway. Search engines lol. It's somewhere in here. Okay, so signals. POSIX sig. I swear to God, that response was literally generated by LLM. Right, LLM just looked at my query and thought, oh, this man wants ffmpeg documentation. ffmpeg documentation. Anyways, okay, let's actually go to ChatGPT. Like, I'm pretty sure the modern search engines don't even work like, you know, search engines anymore. It's literally like just LLM trying to guess what you mean, not actually searching the text, but actually try to interpret your text as meaningful sentences. And like, this is the problem with the modern searches, right? So have you noticed that all of the modern searches, they are not really searching like your text anymore. What they're doing, they're trying to interpret what they're saying. They're trying to understand what you're saying in a smart way and guess what you're doing. Just like, the pattern matching works better. Yeah. Especially, like, I think Discord is doing this kind of shit right now with its search, and it's fucking unusable. It's like, it's literally unusable. Maybe I'm just old. Maybe I just not used to this kind of stuff. But I mean, quite often, I want to search a substring. Right, I just want to search a fucking substring. Like, some time ago, like, I said something on Discord. I don't remember what exactly I said, but I remember the keywords that I used in that message. It's easy for me to just search for these keywords, right? Just find all of the messages with these keywords. Don't try to interpret what I put in a query as the actual text and sentence and do something about it. No, don't interpret it. Just fucking search the substring. I don't fucking know. Levenstein that shit for me, please. Exactly. Also, like, Levenstein would be even better than this. Yesterday I saw other two tech streamers say the same thing. I'm not the only one, apparently. Okay, that's interesting. So, and I don't really know, right? Is that because I'm just old and used to old ways of doing things? Or is it objectively worse? Right. So it's kind of difficult to tell sometimes, because quite often all of these motherfucking companies will dismiss any criticism by saying, oh, you're just used to old way of doing things, old man, oh, your place is in museum. Or just like, it's such a bad way to dismiss criticism, honestly. Right, it's just, holy fuck. It's probably better for non-technical people who don't form their search queries very well. That's a good point. That's the kind of conversation I wanna have. Yes, okay, that, like, I can agree with that. Sure, let's have both. Let's have both and be explicit about which way we're using. Right. I'm totally fine with that. I'm freaking totally fine with that, because yeah, I agree that for different kind of people, for different kind of backgrounds, some ways are better. Some ways are worse, but let's be fucking explicit about the ways we're doing things. Smart search, dumb search, at least that. At least fucking that. I tend to search for something, then control F again on the search, but exactly. Jesus fucking Christ. Imagine control F starting to use smart search instead of searching for the substring. That's gonna be a complete fucking disaster. Like, computers are over if Control F starts doing that. It may start doing that because non-technical users don't really form like well. They don't really know what they're searching for the page. We need to help them. Oh, you don't like that, you old man? Go back to your museum. Museum piece. Progress. Go. Brrr. Gonna make your own browser when that happens. Yeah, so I guess Andreas Kling doing his own browser specifically for the reason, right? Well, I mean, he said that explicitly. So he just wants to have a browser which he can control fully, right? No other party can have control over that browser. So he said that explicitly. Poor people complaining. Yeah. So what I was doing? Oh yeah, I was ranging too hard. I'm sorry. Was ranging too hard, man. Okay. So FFmpeg supported POSIX signals. And Nyako, thank you so much for tier 1 subscription. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just looking if I didn't miss anyone. Okay, it looks like I didn't miss anyone. Alright, FFmpeg supports various POSIX signals for controlling its behavior during runtime. Some of the commonly used signals include a SIGINT interrupt. This signal is typically sent by pressing Ctrl-C in the terminal. It instructs FFmpeg to stop processing and exit gracefully. SIGTERM. This signal is used to request the termination of FFmpeg. It allows FFmpeg to perform cleanup operations before exiting. Wait a second. Isn't SIGTERM just like kills the process without asking like anything? Like that's kind of the point of SIGTERM, isn't it? Like it's a termination. You can't really catch it or anything. It's just like it die. Oh, it's a SIG kill. Okay, maybe I'm so maybe it's a SIG kill. Okay, I confuse it. Alright. SIG hop hang up. This signal is often used to reload configuration. What? Isn't that engine X? Is that a thing in what kind of configuration file of FFmpeg we're talking about? Excuse me. Did I miss something? Can anybody explain to me? Did I literally miss something? Okay, can I actually put dark mode in here? Is there any? I don't fucking know. It's too bright, honestly. So SIG user is this signal can be used to trigger custom actions within FFmpeg. User can define specific behavior to be executed upon receiving this. What the fuck? What? The settings are above. Oh my god, thank you so. Thank you so much. Tricks used best. What kind of custom actions can you do with the FFmpeg? You're silly LLM. Wait. Isn't SIG hub isn't reloading configs on SIG hub more over engine X thing? Can you, by the way, see what I'm typing in there? I'm pretty sure you can't see scheiße, but maybe you can now. Right, so I'm going to put a question mark. Let's actually, what's this going to say? I apologize for the confusion. I apologize for the confusion. You are correct. Signal commonly associated with real, okay. Configuration files in the server application when receives SIG hub. In the context of FFmpeg, when SIG hub can be used to trigger certain actions like reloaded input files or reinitializing the... I really need to search for that, like FFmpeg SIG hub. Was it right, search for FFmpeg SIG. I don't think it's a thing. Execute SIG pipe or SIG pipe X not working as intended. Or TFM again. Anyways, whatever. Let's just send SIGINT. I'm pretty sure it knows how to handle SIGINT. Like, I'm pretty sure it knows how to do that. So I think I'm already wasting time on this one, but whatever. So can I just do SIGINT? I'm pretty sure I can do that. So let's just go ahead and... Yeah, so I already have everything. Let's build that. Let's simply build all of that stuff. So I was gonna complain, but we probably can just include you know, the corresponding headers and everything. Okay, so that seems to be even working. That seems to be even at working. So let's do PCManFM. If you don't care about the output, it finishes, just use SIG kill. That sounds like a good idea. So we'll see. Let's actually try SIGINT first, and then we're gonna do SIG kill. All right, so what I wanted to do, I wanted to find the path to visualizer. And why do I have Uncle Bob in here? I don't remember making that screenshot, honestly. What the fuck is this shit? Like, I don't remember. Like, at some point I just did that, but... not gonna comment on that. Top kick. Oh. So let's actually find something super small. This kind of music. Alright. Let's render. And it seems to be rendering. And if I press escape, is it doing things? It didn't even... I think it didn't even send anything. I didn't think it sent anything. Ah! I never actually said cancel. Right, I actually never said cancel. Right, so that's understandable. So it, like, I implemented the feature, but it's not used. Alright, so let's go ahead and just distinguish these two cases. Alright, so this is the first case. We can even maybe put it like that. So is finished, rendering is finished, so that's basically what we do. Otherwise, if we pressed cancel or escape, right, so this is just escape, jump to the oh my god, Emacs. Okay, so I was hoping that it will jump to the previous position, but it couldn't, it wasn't able to do that. Alright, so let's remove the extra parentheses. I didn't think we need them. If I press the frame slower, then we generate them. So when we cancel the rendering, if FFmpeg still doing. Ah, I even had it to. Yeah, all right. So already I was kind of aware of this problem already. So when we cancel the rendering, if FFmpeg still going and blocking the UI, we need to do something about that. For example, inform the user that we're finalizing the rendering or something. Yo, if we manage to actually solve that, that is kind of cool, honestly. But this to do kind of belongs here, honestly. So any FFmpeg process has failed. Let's mark FFmpeg handle as null, which will be interpreted as FFmpeg failure on the next frame. It should be safe to set FFmpeg to null even if FFmpeg already failed, because it should deallocate all the resources even in case of a failure. Holy fuck! I actually wrote like a very useful information for myself. What the fuck? Huh. So that makes sense. That's actually like legit useful information like now. After I haven't worked with this source code for quite some time, I don't remember things. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So, okay, so since we're doing the, like basically canceling, maybe it makes sense for me to say, you know, rendering is canceled, right? Goddamn cancel culture. Rendering has been cancelled, and we're gonna like literally say true, right? So this is gonna be basically true. So, and the same thing like in here, right? So I do have duplicate code, but this is fine, right? So it's not that much of a duplicate code, and at some point maybe I can factor it out to something else, right? So I can definitely factor out this kind of operation because it kind of repeats even down there several times. Yeah, there's like three places where it repeats, which probably means that I need to factor it out into something like finish rendering or whatnot. Alright, so anyways, let's try to build the entire thing and see how it goes. Looks like the bit about SIG hub and SIG user was BS. It looked like BS, honestly, right? Because like I don't think FFmpeg has configs. Does FFmpeg has configs? I don't think so, right? Because like it's configured entirely through the command line. That's kind of the point of FFmpeg. But maybe it does have some configuration. Right. I feel like it confused it with Nginx because I know for a fact it doesn't have. Okay, I see. I know for a fact that reloading the configuration on SIG hub is an Nginx thing. It's a very much Nginx thing, and I even did that at some point, right? So I tried it out with like kill command, and it actually worked. Why would FFmpeg need config? Exactly. Like honestly, I don't understand why people are so excited about LLMs. Honestly, it's just like they're like make fuck ups like that all the time, right? So I suppose like it helps people to pretend like they're doing something productive, right? So I don't know, man, I don't know. So anyways, let's actually start like visualizing, but people like them, right? So that means there's a market for that. So, all right, so let's do the rendering, and seems to be rendering. So I'm gonna press escape. Did it send the shit? Ooh, that is cool. So not only that, it exited. Exited normally, received signal 2. I see. It literally exited normally, received signal 2. So it was trying to sort of like finish gracefully or something like that. And trying to finish gracefully was literally the thing that is kind of stolen it. Right, it is kind of stolen. But on top of that, when it's like terminated like that, it returns like a bad thing, right? It returns an error situation, which probably means that we should not do this thing in here. When we're canceling, we literally should not care about FFmpeg failing. Like, we should not care about it. Just kill it. FFmpeg will finish gracefully on sig term and sig int. Okay, understandable. So let's not finish gracefully, because if we're canceling, we literally don't give a shit, right? So we literally don't give a shit. If cancel, sig kill. Let's kill that big. Okay, good. Escape. FFmpeg got terminated and killed. Okay, that is actually very cool. So do I have a... Well, I mean, I probably should have actually checked while the visualizer was running, but I don't have a FFmpeg. So, as already said, what we have to do, we have to literally ignore that. We literally have to ignore that. So we just kill the whole thing, right? It probably stalls and waits for this entire thing, but it doesn't matter. All right, so it doesn't matter. We just set it to null, and then we just do the usual thing that switches the state of the UI. So I think that's literally what we have to do. Fail, don't care, we're canceling anyway. So that solves this to-do automatically. Because notice how quickly it actually errored out. Notice how quickly it errored out. That means it worked. It's just like the only reason why it errored out is because we care about exit codes and terminations and errors like this and stuff like that. In case of a cancel, we just shouldn't. So that automatically solves that to do. Right. And in this case, it doesn't matter, right? So because we can put that maybe to do like a note in here. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. So we can just like set it to null. So yeah. I think that makes it, yeah, cancelable almost instantly, which is good, I think, which is freaking good. All right, so let's give it a try, and I'm gonna just do it like this. All right, I press R and press escape. That is so fucking cool. Insta cancel. Fucking holy fuck! I should have done that way earlier, right? So if FFmpeg got terminated by killed, by killed, insta kill, yo! Right. So and because of that, if you have act on press, you know, basically undoing that action is super fast. That is so cool. All right. So it didn't even require creating separate threads or bullshit like that. You can just instantly kill this thing like that. But this is Linux. This is the real operating system for serious software development. We are actually developing these things also for, you know, operating system for video games. So I don't really know how this entire stuff is going to work for that operating system. So how do you kill a child process in Windows? Does anybody know? Task kill. And how quickly is it going to work? Task kill. Okay, so ChatGPT. Okay, how do I kill child process on Windows? My Twitch chat, I'm streaming right now, saying something about task kill. Are they debating me as usual? Or is that a thing? Okay. So no, your Twitch chat is not debating you this time. I really like how it said this time. For fuck's sake, it's such a nice touch, actually. I really like how it said this time. On Windows, you can use task kill. Oh, it's a command. On Windows, you can use the task kill command to terminate a child process. Task kill is a command line utility that wait, they are debating me. I need a C function, not a command line. All right. If you need to kill a child process programmatically within a C program on Windows, you can achieve this using terminate process function provided by the Windows API. Here is an example of how you can use terminate process to terminate a child process in C. Okay, so you open process, you terminate the process. Okay, so let's actually just Google up for terminate process, Win API. Win API. All right. So chat actually debated me. So chat actually debated me. It seems like your Twitch chat did indeed Jeb hated you this time regarding using a C function to kill the child process on Windows. Thank you for clarifying the requirement, and I hope the information provided on using the terminate process function in a C program will be helpful for you if you ever need to programmatically terminate a process. And if you have any other questions or need further assistance, feel free to ask. Okay, it's just a yes man, right? So it doesn't like, yeah, it just like always agrees with you. It just always agrees with you. So Twitch chat debated me. Yes, it's debated. Yes, but it didn't debate me. No, it didn't debate. Anyways, so we have in here handle the process to be terminated, process terminate, exit code. The exit code to be used by process and wait, that's weird. Like, why do I provide exit code? The exit code to be used by the process and threads terminated as a result of this call. Wait, I can kill a process and tell that process to exit with that specific. Is that what it is? That is such a bizarre thing to. Isn't that up to the process to just do that? Freaking Windows people. Makes sense. Maybe it does make sense, right? So through that exit code, you kind of know that you killed this thing and not the process terminated itself or something like that. Yeah, but you're telling it how to fail. I see. So maybe you provide an exit code that application will never exit with by itself, and that's how you know in other parts of your code that application was killed and not terminated by itself. That's kind of the idea, right? So I suppose the use case, I mean. That smells like a potential security issue, maybe. I don't really know, but whatever. Anyways, so let me see. So let's try to build this stuff on Windows. But before we do that on Windows, maybe I need to commit whatever I have in here. All right. So, okay, let's go and go to the config and build this stuff on Windows. Right, build this stuff on Windows. Did you do Advent of Code 2023? I kind of stopped doing Advent of Code. Kind of done with it. Worked. Actually worked. The whole C one was great. It was great up until people kind of stopped watching it, so I was not motivated to continue. Right. So okay, so that seems to be working. Right. So the second time should be a little bit faster because we don't rebuild Radip on each rebuild. Though it's still taking some time to build just an executable. Anyways. So let me find the mutualizer XZ, right? So here's XZ, and I'm using wine to actually start it up. Caring about the views, Kappa. Fortunately, I wish I didn't have to. I wish I didn't have to. AOC is a Christmas theme lead code. Yes, that's what it is. That's what it actually is. Okay. All right, so this is a Windows version, as you can see. I'm surprised. Okay, it's rendering, right? Then I escape this entire thing. Yeah, it's taking some time. Terminating encoder thread, blah, blah, blah. So hopefully it will. Yeah, so it's trying to terminate. Jesus Christ. Alright, so at least it's terminatable, right? So it's not instantly terminatable, but at least it's terminatable. And on top of that, there is a little bit of a problem that Windows FFmpeg never complained. For the same reason it never complained for Linux, because we never actually included ffmpeg.h. So how did it fucking work then? Right, so essentially the Windows version of ffmpeg and rendering never accepted Boolean. So it worked entirely accidentally. Because I suppose, yeah, so it was passing second parameter, but this function simply ignored second parameter, so it just kind of worked accidentally. It created this situation similar to JavaScript. It's just like JavaScript, you can accept less parameters than you actually pass, and the extra parameters are going to be basically ignored. Right, so this is basically what happened in here. C is basically low-level JavaScript confirmed. It literally, yeah, it literally acted like it's kind of a JavaScript situation, right? So we passed more arguments in there, but this function only handled the first one, so it was totally fine. And you can only achieve that on the level of linking, right? You can only achieve that on the level of linking because the compiler just won't allow you to do that. But since we were compiling these things separately and we're just linking all of that stuff, that worked out. C is a JS this whole time, yeah. It's kind of like there is kind of like a similarity between JavaScript and C in some regard. You can find the parallels between C and JavaScript because JavaScript is kind of like a system language of web development. If we consider browser and operating system, right? So JavaScript is the C of the browser operating system, kind of like, and not really. So some people say that it's assembly of browser, whatever. Let me try to build it now. So now it should complain because we're including the headers, so there will be discrepancy between declaration and definition. That's exactly what I want. Please fail. I fucking beg you, mate. Thank you. It failed, and that's exactly what I wanted. So it complains, yeah, so we don't have to do that because we already have one type def of this struct, so we don't need a second type def. Void star moment, exactly. Void star kind of moment. So, like, to be fair, the type system of C is extremely disappointing, right? So there's a lot of disappointing things about C. And I still program in that language, not because it's a great language, but because it's the only sort of like a modern, still in use language that it's just simple. It's just fucking simple and not overbloated with ideological bullshit of particular paradigm or anything like that, right? It's just like it's one of the rare still in use languages with no BS, if you know what I'm talking about, right? So it's just like it's so difficult to find sometimes. It's far from perfect. Like some of the parts of it are fucking gross, especially the weak type system, and like I do agree with that. But it's so fucking rare to find a no BS language. Anyways, so what we need to do in here, we have to actually accept the cancel, right? So this is going to be boolean cancel, and let's try to rebuild this stuff. Okay. So we close in the handles, we flush in file buffers, we close in the handles, and I suppose what we have to do, we have to now terminate the process. Terminate process, and what do we accept? We accept the handle process. So I suppose I just do h process, and I also have to provide the code. So, well, we all know what kind of code we have to provide in here, if it has to be custom code. So that's how we know that we killed that process and not somebody else, right? That's how we know that. So if, right, cancel, right, cancel, just kill this entire process. But can you like force kill it so it cancels everything, like literally everything? I don't think you can. Yeah, because kind of like a forced termination is a thing of Linux or POSIX in general, right? So it's I don't know if Windows can handle it really well, but we can try. We can always try. We can always try. Okay, start rendering. It also takes some time to actually start this thing. Okay, so it is rendering. It doesn't really report things in here, which is kind of bizarre, but I'm pressing escape. Okay, so it didn't work second time for some reason. I don't know why. So I pressed escape first. It didn't react to that escape, but the second escape, it actually killed it instantly, which is a good thing. So as you can see, exited with exit code 69, right? So which is good, right? So we know precisely that it's us who killed the process. I like that. I really like that. Anyways, so we'll give it a try one more time. Maybe there was something with the input. I'm not sure. Or maybe it was actually not accepting the input yet. Maybe it was hanging. So because the UI thread was blocking or something like that. So yeah. All right, rendering. Okay. And then I press escape. A Windows version. Okay, wait a second. So escape. Okay. I didn't expect that it's gonna just work so easily. What the fuck? Excuse me. Too easy. Exactly. What the fuck is this shite from there? But to be fair, so one of the problems with this entire stuff is that it's kind of not obvious that this is what you can do. So essentially, if you're using only UI, let's go back to Linux. Right, let's go back to Linux. I'm going to rebuild this entire thing and I'm going to do it like that. So I'm using Wine to run Windows version, yes. I'm building with MinGW, cross-compiling from Linux to Windows, and then I'm running the Windows application on Linux using Wine. Cancel button, yeah. So we'll need to introduce some sort of a cancel button. Right, so this is a Linux version. Okay, so and if I do something like that, right, and as of right now, we're using act on release, right? So if I use act on press, let's switch to act on press, right? So to simulate the case scenario a little bit better, act on press, enabling this thing. What did Carmack say about UI? Check out the today comment. There is a link to the tweet. Right? Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have unused ID, which is kind of bizarre. So I should have actually done something like this. So ID, we're not using ID now. So we're exploring the idea of triggering buttons on press rather than release. Right, so that's what we're exploring, because all of the buttons that you encounter in here, they always act when you release them, right? Carmack argues that it's better to act immediately. It just makes the interfaces like feel more responsive and better, right? At the cost of not being able to cancel the click action, but then he argues that just basically design your entire UX that any action is cancelable. Right, so we are experimenting with this idea just to see if it's like actually true or not. Right, at least for ourselves, right? So we're just testing these ideas. Okay, so we enabled act on press. Right, let me double check. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I accidentally pressed render. Right, so it takes a little bit of time to do this kind of stuff. And as you can see, it's not obvious that I can cancel it, right? So I can cancel it immediately by pressing escape, but it's still not obvious. It is still not obvious. So as somebody said, we need some sort of a button. We need some sort of an escape button. So how can we even do that? Where do we even rendering this entire thing? So there should be rendering the video. So this is where we display the rendering video screen. We need to introduce like a button for all of that. So what I'm thinking actually, let me see. We can just add like a cross button. Right, I'm rendering this entire thing, and we can just add some sort of a cross button in here. Right, somewhere here. It's actually super easy to add one. So we can do that. Damn, it's so fucking cool that I can just cancel it immediately. I really like that. Like, it renders for a little bit, and I just, boom, it's done. Like, it's cancelable. So, yes. X in a circle under the load bar. Maybe under the load bar. But the problem is that it's just easier to put it in the left upper corner, at least for now, because I don't have to put it relative to any of the elements, right? I can just like specify its coordinates and that's it, like in absolute terms, right? You don't have to think about it. Anyways, so how do we render the buttons actually? Toolbar. So this is where we render all of these things. So we have a play button where we do this kind of stuff. So it's a play button with location. So the most interesting one, button with ID, I suppose, right? So this is a button with ID. And we can quite easily know that we hovering over this thing or not hovering or clicking or whatnot. Okay, so what I want to have a button similar to play button, similar to that one. So essentially we're going to have cancel rendering button, and maybe it makes sense to actually accept the rectangle in here, like boundary, and this thing is going to return an integer indicating whether it was clicked or not and stuff like that, right? So that thing is going to be actually rendering all of that stuff. Anyways, so how are we going to be doing all of this stuff? Right, I suppose maybe it makes sense to actually call it with location, and we're going to accept const char file and int line. So file is the file path of the current file, plug.int, plug.c, and line is where this function was called. We use the position of the call to this function as an ID of UI element to uniquely identify that UI element. Our immediate UI system uses this kind of stuff. It's not ideal, but it's fine for now. So what we're doing with this kind of thing, we're sort of hashing right, the file and line together to get this ID, and that ID is going to be the ID of that thing. Right, so then we can quite easily say, okay, button with ID where all of the logic is located, and we just provide the boundary, and this entire thing returns us the state of that specific button. right? It returns as the state. And through that state, we can actually determine whether the button was clicked, so button state clicked, or it was hovered, right? So that's how we can do that. So all of the logic of the button is contained within this function. And it actually changes depending on the mode, whether we have a feature act on release or act on press. All of that is factored out into this function, right? So we don't have to think whether we are currently in a act on release or act on press mode. All of that is like a responsibility of that function. We don't have to care, like worry about that. So, and we can actually forward this state back into the caller, right? So, and how do we get file and line? We create a special macro, cancel rendering button, which only accepts the boundary, right? And it forwards to this thing, basically grabbing a thing like file and line, right? And then just forwards the boundary like so. So that's basically what we have here. So in here, on top of like handling the logic of the button, we also have an opportunity to render something on the screen, right? So we can render that. We can render the rectangle. So we usually render the rectangle with rounded corners. Let me actually find the instances. Rectangle, maybe a draw round, or maybe a draw rectangle rounded. So this is the kind of thing we probably want to do in here. So we have a boundary. So I suppose this is the roundness of the whole thing, and this is how many segments and stuff like that. So we have a color tooltip. So what kind of colors do we have in here? Color. So there must be some sort of like a track button background. Yeah, something like a track button background is a good thing to use in here. But on top of that, we can do a very interesting thing. So if state basically hover over, we can actually draw this entire button with a different color, right? So this is the regular one when it's not hovered, and another one is going to be when it's hovered. Let's actually find it. So button hover over. Okay, so that's a good one. So let me clone this entire thing, and then we go. So when it's a hover over, we use one color. When it's something else, we use a different color. Maybe it would be even better to do something like that. Color, and we can just take this entire thing like so. If it's hover over, just use that color. Otherwise, use the regular color, like so. So then we can only have one column here that uses that specific color. And there we go, it looks a little bit nicer, maybe, I don't freaking know. We'll see. And so in here, like, we just have to call it, all right? So in a place where we do the rendering, where we placing all of the progress bars and stuff like that, we can just call that function somewhere. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm gonna place it in here. So this is some sort of image. So this is a screen texture, unload. Oh, this is where we send in the frames. I see. So this is actual rendering and stuff like that. Okay. So a cancel rendering button. So boundary. Maybe I'm gonna actually wrap that into the scope so I can have a rectangle boundary, and I can just define it somehow. So we're gonna have X, which is like we want to have a little bit of a padding in there. So let's actually say that the padding is going to be 50. In terms of width and height, let's make it 100 by 100. So I want to have a square button, honestly. I want to have a square button. That's about it. So, and if this entire thing actually be as clicked, we need to cancel the rendering. We really need to cancel the rendering. How are we going to be doing all of that? That's a good question. That's a very good question, actually. So we can try to do this kind of stuff. Right away, but it breaks assumptions, right? So because we set in ffmpeg to null right away, and then the entire code below expects ffmpeg to be a real thing. So we can't really like cancel it right away in here. We kind of need to schedule the canceling on the next frame, right? That's what we have to do. We really need to schedule it on the next frame. So here, when we only starting handling the frame, it's actually super easy. All right, but how can we even schedule it on the next frame? That's a good question. That's a really good question. So when it's got, you know, pressed, we can do something like cancel, yeah, cancel rendering or something. That's kind of a really bad way of doing that, but I mean, I don't have any better way to describe that. So cancel rendering. So, and once we have this sort of field, we can say like key pressed, key escape, or cancel rendering, right? Or cancel rendering. And that's gonna be fine, I suppose. Maybe. Might as well, by the way, actually, just directly inline that boundary in here. Is it going to be too much? Probably not. Nah, yeah, it's probably too much. So I was thinking that I can inline it in here, but since it's inside of if, it's just not going to look that good. Right, so anyways, let's go to the compilation errors. Let's go to the compilation errors and see what's going to happen. Okay, so we don't have these fields already, as already said, right? So we don't have this field. So let me see where we do all of that. I can put it somewhere here, but when we start rendering, we need to clean it up to false. Right, where do we actually set ffmpeg? Okay, so, okay, so we have a dedicated whole function that prepares the state of the application for rendering. That is very cool. So I need something like that for finishing the rendering, right? So because I already have a little bit of duplicate code, but that's besides the point. So this is where we can actually do that. So cancel rendering is going to be false. So, and it's sort of like effectively scheduling the cancel and rendering on the next frame, right? Whole ass function. It's like a whole grained bread, and this is a whole ass function. It's not half-assed function. It's a whole ass function. Just a whole wheat bread. Anyways, so let's try to recompile this entire thing, and I see. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Anyways, let's try to run the mutualizer and see if it's going to do some stuff. Okay, I'm starting the rendering. All right, here's the button. That was easy. And it's actually canceled like instantly. So it's only a question to how like make it look good, if you know what I'm talking about, right? So maybe making it smaller, maybe placing it somewhere else, right? Because I feel like it's too big, right? So render cancel. So I'm not using hot reloading in here. I could have used hot reloading, but I don't use hot reloading, probably because it's just like I have a limited amount of time. But what if I just take a big track and just keep rendering the big track? It's going to take some time, and while I'm rendering this entire thing, I can try to develop the UI. It's kind of funny, honestly. It's kind of funny, but it could be a thing. Why not? Let's give it a try. So hot reloading, yeah. So let's go ahead and just enable hot reloading. I think you have to explicitly enable it. Yeah. So don't bundle resources with the executable and load the resources directly from the folder. Yeah, so maybe this is something that I also need to enable as well, right? So just load all of that stuff directly. Also enable hot reloading, act on press. We're not enabling microphone yet, right? So all of these features, Let's go. All right, so that was fast because I probably already had a pre-built, you know, ready. No, I didn't have it, right? So, but it just recompiled the DLL version of Raylib from already compiled object files, right? Incremental building. Isn't that marvelous? I think it's marvelous. All right, so let's actually start this entire thing. And I hope it's not going to be too consuming on my resources. Maybe it could become too consuming on my resources, so, but we'll see. So pilot of the sun, right? So I'm pretty sure it's going to take some time to actually render it. So it's not, oh my God. Excuse me? Oof. Oh, I know what is going on. I know what the fuck is going on, chat. This is one of this problem. Yeah, okay. So I can't just take a longer track, because before rendering it, we loading it again, but as a raw wave, which is a long ass operation, and I even have it to do for that specifically. So longer things is just like difficult to render. Because of how Raylib does things, but that's besides the point, right? So I think we need to get rid of Raylib specifically for handling the sounds, because it kind of stays in our way. It kind of stays in our way. We need to have more control over how we're loading the files, how we're handling the files and stuff like that. The good thing about Raylib is that once it starts staying in your way, it's actually super easy to get rid of it for certain things, right? So because it consists of modules, you don't like the sound module, you can just not use that audio module altogether. You can just even remove it from, like, you know, from linking with that module. You can easily do that. So, and this is something I was thinking we're going to do in the future, right? So yeah, I can do that, but anyway. So one of the things I wanted to do is to maybe place some sort of a cross in there, and I can try to do that by literally drawing that cross inside of the rectangle. So first of all, let me make it slightly smaller, right? Because I think as of right now, that thing is just a bit too big. All right, so this is going to be 50-50. Maybe this one is going to be 25 by 25. All right, so, and where is my compilation situation? Compilation situation. All right, so let's take the smaller thing in here. Let's take the smaller thing. Okay, so we're rendering. Right, so that looks like a reasonable button. I press it and it actually cancels it. Cool. So here, what I can do now, I can go to this function. I can't see half of the stuff on the screen, but that's fine. What I want to do, I want to draw a line, but I actually want to draw a thick line. How can I do that? How can I do that? I need to find raylib.h. Draw line. I can draw strip. Maybe that's what I want to do actually. Not Bezier, but strip. Bezier. So so it's several points. No, not that. Where can I specify? Okay, so draw line XC. Cool. So what's going to be the start point? That's a very good question. Okay, so let's figure it out. So the first one is going to be start position, which is basically starts at the position of the boundary, right? So it's going to be X and Y, but maybe with a little bit of a padding, and padding, let's say, is going to be pad X, right? So which is pad X, and we can basically say that is going to be like a fraction, 10% of the width of the boundary. And a similar shit is going to happen with the pad Y, right? So this is going to be height, and we're going to just add pad Y in here. So this is the start position. So it's a left upper corner. So the same shit is going to happen. The same shit is going to happen for the end position, right? So this is going to be the end position. So, but it's going to be more like boundary. Let me kill visualizer because I think it kills my entire system. Okay. Boundary plus width, but minus pad X. So let me align those things a little bit like that. So boundary Y plus boundary height, but minus pad Y. Right, so this is the first line that we want to draw in here. So this is going to be start and this is going to be end. The thickness, let's say that the thickness is going to be, I don't know, maybe like literally pad X, right? So, and in terms of a color, I think I want to use the color of the text. Do we have anything about the text? Or maybe labels or something like that. So when I'm rendering the label, so tooltip foreground sounds like a good color to use in here. Let's see if it's going to work. So let me try to recompile this entire thing. And let me run it. So, okay, rendering. We've got the first line. So in terms of padding, I think padding is not enough. Right, I think we need a little bit more padding in here. Okay. So let's just add more padding then. That's surprising that it was not enough. But in any case, it worked. It doesn't really matter. So this is the primary diagonal. Now we need to create a secondary diagonal. So the secondary diagonal, I suppose it's pretty straightforward, right? It's basically the same, but things are shuffled around. So x is going to stay the same, but y is going to be of the second thing. So y is of the second thing. So x original, but y down there. So in terms of the second one, x is going to be original, but y, so yeah, we can just swap these two things around like that, I suppose. X is that, but yeah, maybe that will work. Maybe that will work. We'll see. We'll see. All right. So let me take this kind of stuff. All right. That was bizarre that it became thicker. Well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I would even argue that it's a little bit too thick. So maybe in terms of padding, like in terms of like this thing. So the thickness, we're literally just using the boundary. Let's create the separate parameters because I feel like I want to actually control them separately. Right, so padding, so thickness I want it to be maybe 15. But the padding, I want it to be bigger. Like I really want it to be like maybe 30%. I don't freaking know. So, and this one is going to be thick. This one is going to be thick. And this one is also going to be thick. Not just thick, just thick. Uh-huh. Okay. Looks Gucci. Looks Tamaguchi. There we go. Cool. All right, so I accidentally pressed render, so that takes a little bit of a time, but then it's cancelable. And I wonder if I can simply go now and maybe make it less thick. So what about 10%? So this is hot reloading. So the hot reloading seems to be enabled. Yeah, so it's enabled, so I can do this kind of stuff, then this kind of stuff. Yeah, so that's a good one. I really like this one. Right, so maybe it would be better to position it somewhere else. Maybe it would be better to position it somewhere else, but I think it's fine for now. Right, I think it's fine for now, and it quickly actually, you know, restarts. So I think it should start a little bit faster. Right, so we cancel it very quickly, but then the rendering should start even faster. So the only reason why it starts so slow is again because we're doing very expensive operation of reading that thing the second time because we need its you know, samples for the wave. But that's already a problem with Raylib. Raylib just doesn't allow us to do that quickly. So we can try to circumvent them by loading those waves in the background in a separate thread, or just not using Raylib and like working with all of that stuff directly, right? Writing our own loader and everything. So the way Raylib works with music that is a very big, long file, it doesn't load that entire file into the memory, right? It actually loads it lazily as it plays it. But then as we start rendering this entire thing, we don't really have an access to that mechanism of lazy loading and lazy playing and stuff like that. We literally have to load the entire thing first, like as a samples, and then send those samples. It would be kind of cool to tap into that mechanism and also lazily load the samples of the big file as we render that file, but it doesn't really allow us to do that super easily. Load sorting streaming, yeah, so it like something like that. It's just like it's very stupid that we have to load all of the samples. It slows down the rendering of the FFmpeg, like the startup of the rendering, which degrades the UX and UI. So mmap the file. I mean, we also need to parse it, right? So because the like maybe there is a format where all of these things are encoded, and you need to like, you know, stream encode it or something. It's just like not about mapping it, honestly. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. So that is something that has to be like, you know, solved separately. All right. Okay, so yeah, maybe I need to actually commit whatever I have in here. Implement. So what did we do in here? Wait a second. I think I need to like actually commit some things separately. Why am I in Russian? What the fuck? So okay, this is English. Cool. So commit message. Let me get rid of that. So let's unstage all of these things. Yeah, I was actually doing way too many things. Like this is two separate commits. Right, this is two separate commits. I forgot to commit my previous work where I sped up the canceling. So let's actually go ahead and do that. So this is a cancel render. Damn, that kind of, okay. All right, so let's commit everything at once because I don't think I can separate them. Speed up canceling of FFmpeg rendering, and also add a UI button to cancel the rendering. Right. So I'm gonna push that right into the repo. So that's pretty cool. So yeah. I feel like the in a conclusion, right? So what's gonna be the conclusion? I think there is something to this. It does feel a little bit more responsive. It actually does. I kind of like that, honestly. I kind of like that. So, and the only reason why we can't easily like just slap this kind of approach on our application is because just some operations are very punishing, like render. Right. We managed to make them less punishing, but there's still some work to do. Like for example, here, it still waits a little bit before actually starting and allowing you to cancel it. But it cancels it relatively quickly. It's just like it terminates the process, just kills the process, which is good. Right. And on Windows, it also works relatively well. So yeah, this approach makes UI feel better. I agree with that. But you also need to put additional effort into like making all of the actions cancelable very easily and ensure that they're not really punishing. Like all of these long operations, they shouldn't block UI, right? So yeah, so you need to like put additional effort. Like you need to restructure sort of your way of thinking about UI and your application a little bit. But I don't think it's going to be applicable to already established applications where the entire workflow is kind of built around all of that stuff. So yeah, it's a cool idea if you can apply this approach, but you can't really apply it like anywhere, right? Sometimes you don't have a choice. And I understand the frustration of John Carmack, right? Because sometimes you want to, but there's some things that prevent you from having more responsive UI. All right, so that was a good stream. I really enjoyed it. Right, thanks everyone who's watching me right now. I really appreciate that. Have a good one, and I see you all on the next recreational programming session with Mr. Azuzin. I love you all. Mwah.